Welcome everyone. In this video we are going to explore how to use extract to take someone out of a background and put them on a new background in with a little bit of a twist to it, perhaps a way that you might not have thought of. You might have, so if it is, well, this is a review. But otherwise we're going to assume for a moment that no one has used extract, and we're going to talk about what it does and how to use it. Well, the first thing I want to do is duplicate the background layer, and the reason I do that is the way extract works is it actually takes the person, it basically deletes the background. So if I made a mistake and I want to go back to the original, I couldn't. So this way we'll do all our work on the copy layer, preserving the original. So I'm going to hide the background just so it doesn't get in our way, and it's still there if I ever need it. And then we'll open this thing called extract. Here it is. And basically it's a very simple principle. We have two tools. We're going to mostly use the highlight tool, where we highlight the edges that we want to retain. Now I'm using the right bracket key to make my brush fairly big, and I'm doing that because this picture of Michael, he's got some pretty nice hair going on. By the way, this is my son Michael. He got his curly hair from me, although when he looks at me now I tell him this is your future, so enjoy this hair while you can. So you see I'm deliberately using a really nice big highlight that goes partially on his hair and partially onto the background. Anywhere where you have a really defined edge like his shoulders and arms, I want to use the smallest brush possible. And I could do that by clicking on Smart Highlighting, but I can do it kind of on the fly if I hold down the Control key on Windows, Command on the Macintosh, and start to drag along. It's kind of almost like it's magnetized. It's going to make a small little brush and follow along the edges here. I'm going to go, oops, missed it. I'm going to make sure I go right to the bottom because you don't want to have any gaps in it. Now because it was magnetized, it kind of went to an area I didn't really want there, but we'll fix that in a second. So let's get the eraser tool and just basically erase that. I'm going to not use Smart Highlighting, use the left bracket key to make a small little brush and just manually kind of paint where I want. And again, we can fix this part up a little later on. Now in the past I spent a lot more time tweaking and fixing and making sure it was just right, but now I just make sure my highlight looks pretty good. I take the paint bucket and fill the middle part. You end up with a blue middle with a green highlight, something like this, and then we click OK, and he's extracted. Now you can see it's not bad, but there's certainly parts of it that aren't great in his hair. There's some detail, but we could stand a little more. Well, what many people do is immediately go to the history brush and start kind of filling in the gaps. And while there's nothing wrong with that, try this first. Take the extracted layer and simply duplicate it. So again, Command or Control J, and look at that. Each time I duplicate it, it just basically fills in the gaps for me. You know how that works? Neither do I. Nor do I care. It just does a really nice job. Now we'll still use the history brush a little bit, but try that first. You might take 1 or 2 or even 3 copies. So these are my extracted layer and the 2 copies. I'm going to use the pop-up menu to choose Merge Visible to give me 1 layer with Mike extracted on it there. Now the mistake, I hate to call it a mistake, but really the mistake many people make at this point is they take the extracted person, drag them into a different photo, and start working. Well, the problem is if you notice anything like part of his shoulder is missing, you're pretty much out of luck, because you can't use the history brush in this document because up until moments ago he didn't exist in this document. So I want to do it the other way around. I'm going to delete this. Instead, what I should do is take this photo and drag it into the one of my person. I'll change the order of the layers. Now, the reason I did it this way is now if I notice any problems like part of a missing shoulder, I can still use the history brush because this is the document that Michael was in originally. So now I can basically fill in the missing pieces and do whatever I need. And of course I would also fix up some of the parts I didn't want by using tools like the eraser and so on. Oops, not like that though. Make sure you're on the correct layer, won't you? That would be good. Something like this. Now, there's not a lot of room to work up at the top, but I'll just do it really quickly. That's going to look really bad at first. That's okay, because we'll hopefully make it look a little better. Now let's try and fix this up a little bit further. I'm going to hold down the Command or Control key, Control on Windows, Command on Mac, and click to load it as a selection. Now I notice that there's a part here that I really should have added into my selection. So I'll just load that in there like that. Now, I want to try and make the edges blend a little better, so here's what I'm going to do. Select, modify, contract. I'm going to contract by, let's say, well, I'll just use 2 pixels, and that makes my selection that much smaller. Then we'll go back to the select menu and choose inverse. So now all that I have selected on this layer is the very outside 2 pixels. I'm going to press Control or Command H to hide the edges, and now I could go ahead and do something like blur perhaps to try and make those edges look a little less obvious. And it's a question of how much. I mean, you don't want to go too far, it starts looking really out of focus, and if you go really far it looks like some weird outer glow. So we want to do it pretty small amount just to kind of soften up those edges a little bit and make it look a little more realistic. So that gives you a basic idea. Like I said, the key thing to remember is if you want to take full advantage of the history brush, make sure you're dragging the background photo into the photo of the person or object you've extracted, and you'll have much more control that way. So next time you're needing to take someone off one background, consider that. It's a very easy way to do it. And Michael, I hate to say it, but as I mentioned before, this is your future. That's just weird. My name's Dave Cross. I will see you next time.